In this video, we're going to go over how I'm making my cards for my DIY version of Warhammer Quest. I'm making thick cards and thin cards. So let's get into this. Welcome to Solitary RPG. In this video, we're going to go over the two different cards types that I'm making. I'm going to have some of the cards, mainly just the dungeon cards, are going to be a very thick card, and I'll show you how I make those. And then I'll have like the event cards and the treasure cards. They're going to be pretty thin, mainly because of the sheer number of these cards that I will be adding to my collection. What I'm working on right now, this is a DIY project, so I want to make all the cards myself and really show everybody all the different steps I'm going through in creating this Warhammer Quest 1995 version. And let's start with the event cards because they're relatively easy. My event cards and my treasure cards will all be made. It's a double-sided print on a single piece of paper, and I'm using the files from Little Monk, and he has a file just for the core cards, so I don't have to go looking for all the cards. They're all in one file. And it was pretty straightforward stuff. I'm printing these on cardstock, and this is the paper that I'm using. I bought it from Michael's. They had it on sale. It's a 65-pound white cardstock. Woohoo! And they had it on sale. I think the 50 sheets was $4 or something like that. So I think they're holding the ink a lot better than the paper, and they look really nice once they're printed out. So how am I printing these double-sided from the files provided by Little Monk? When I started making the dungeon cards, and here's a printout. This is done on regular paper. This one was not done on cardstock. But when I printed out my first one, I looked at it and I was like, oh, okay, this is pretty simple. Basically, you fold the paper in half, glue it down, do whatever you want to secure it, and then you'd have a card front and back for all your different dungeon tiles. But then I got to thinking, I'm like, well, why can't I just print the front and the back? If I just run the paper back through my printer, is everything lined up and set up the same so that I could do that? So I experimented. And what I'm going to do is show you my file and show you basically how I printed these out double-sided. So before I print anything, what I need to do is I need to make a mark on my piece of paper. So this way, when I put it in my printer, I know exactly where the page is coming out and where everything's being printed on the page. Because what's going to happen is it's going to print, then I need to flip it around, put it back in, and have it print again. And I want to make sure that I'm following how the image is being printed out and just keep track of everything. So just a simple mark in one of the corners. Just remember how you put your paper in so you know how it's coming out. So that way you know exactly how to flip it over and put it back in. This is how I do it. I'm sure if I was more familiar with the printer that I had, I wouldn't have to do this, but I'm still getting to know this printer that I have. So let's look at the file that I have from Little Monk with all of the cards in it. So this is the file I'm working from. This is all the core components for the Warhammer Quest 1995. And you can see you've got your dungeon cards, and there's lots of them. Then you go to your event cards, you got your special cards, and then you get into your treasure cards. There's not a lot of cards, but it's going to take a little bit of time to get them all printed out. I'm going to do it one at a time. I've already printed my dungeon cards. Those are the ones that I'm making thicker because those are going to get used on a more regular basis and are going to take the most abuse. What we're going to do is we're going to print this page out first, and then I'll come back and show it to you when I'm done. So here's my printout, and by putting the X here, I know now how to place the paper back in the printer so that when I print the next sheet on, all the cards will print on the back, giving me one of all of the different cards. So let me show you what we're going to do. So we're going to go back into the document. This is the sheet that we printed. Now what I'm going to do is print the next sheet in the sequence, which is this one right here. Well, I'll end up putting my paper back in backwards, the opposite way than I did the first time, reprint, and then this will be what's on the back of the sheet that I just printed. So let me get it printed and I'll come back and show it to you. And voila, we have printed cards. I even have the event cards, and the encounters and everything are facing the right way. So this way, when I flip my cards over, they're not upside down on the back. So everything's worked out good. And the biggest help for me, again, I'm still getting used to knowing my printer though, is I just make a little mark on my paper so I know how it's printing out, so that I can figure out exactly how I need to put it back into my printer, that I can get my cards the way I want them. Now I just need to cut them out. Little Monk was kind enough to put in cut lines. You can see them right there. They're pretty faint. Now I could use a ruler and a box cutter or a knife to cut them out along the lines. The only problem I found though is my ruler's pretty thick. And when I put it up against that line, it's hard to see. And I just can't get a good cut. I'm just using the old-fashioned scissors and using an old trick my mom taught me a long time ago. Is once you get your cut started and you start making your cut, is start following the tip of your scissors, not the back of your scissors, because the tip of your scissors will tell you where you're going and what you're going to cut. A long time ago when I was a child, I was always looking where the scissors were really cutting, and my mom said, nope, just follow the tip of the scissors and you'll get a good cut. And that's exactly what we just got. And then if we turn it around, we'll see that we actually got a good cut on both sides. So now what we're going to do is cut along the bottom here. Now, if any of these lines are not perfect, either my paper shifted or the document's just not 100%, because I don't think the document was designed to do this. I think the document was designed to, glue, like fold the paper in half and glue them together or tape them together or do whatever you wanted to do. I don't think it was actually designed to be double printed like this. Like you can see just a little bit, it's just a little bit off back here. So what I'll do is I'll just come back in and just cut this again. So this side was a little bit off. Now I just got to be really careful though, because I'm just cutting a very little bit off. And again, this isn't that big of a deal. I'd rather have the cards printed on one piece of paper versus trying to glue them and do all that other stuff to them, especially with the sheer number of cards that I've got to create. This is just a little bit simpler of a process. So since this side was off, let's start by cutting on this side. Again, we're just going to follow the tip of the scissors. That's where your scissors are going to cut. And that's the direction you're going. And you don't want to take big cuts with that, because then it's going to make it really hard to follow the tip of the scissors if you're doing that. And then we turn it around. And we're just off a little bit on this side. So you got to do some recutting. But it's okay. Scissors cut paper really nice and easy. Now, once you mess up like that, you got to kind of go in a little bit harder. And I'm just cutting just a little bit extra off. There's that. So now we got them cut on both sides. Now we'll just go down this way. Now, you're going to notice if you're looking through the file that some of the cards kind of have a front and a back. So on those sheets, you're going to need to basically create some waste. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So like on this particular sheet, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to print this twice. I'm going to run it through my printer one way, then I'm going to turn it around, run it through it again. Yeah, I'm going to waste 4 of the cards, but the main card, the red one in the lower left, will be printed on the front and the back. And again, that's really kind of a placeholder card, but you can't do anything to get the rest of the cards printed properly. You're going to have to make some waste. Also, if we look at this particular card, this is the same thing. You're going to have to run it through twice to get the fronts and the backs all onto one card. You could, on this particular sheet, you could do the fold, since these are special rules and you're probably going to be referring to them a lot. You may want to make them either stronger cards, like how I'm going to do my dungeon cards, or just waste some cards. It's kind of up to you in which direction you want to go on that. And then this last one is only got 3 cards on it, so you're going to kind of have to do the same thing. You're going to have to print this one twice. But it's really more of your desires and what you want to accomplish with this project. But yeah, some of these will have to be kind of double printed, and you're going to end up wasting a few of the cards, but I think it's worth it in the end. So let's get back to cutting. So what I need to do from here is I need to cut all these out, and then I'm going to show you the wonderful tool that I picked up to doing all the rounded corners. Let me get this all done, and then we'll come back and show you how I'm doing the rounded corners. I noticed when I was cutting my other cards out that I missed a few little things just cutting around the edges of the cards. So I found that, once you get them done, just kind of tap them and make sure everything's kind of lined up nice and neat. Looks like I did a pretty decent job of hitting all those. But now we want to round the corners. We want to make them look fancy like this. And when I first started working on these cards, my wife had this little corner round punch thing, and you would put the cards in there and you would punch them. And yeah, I broke it. I guess I was pushing too hard. Actually, my dungeon cards actually have cardstock glued to them, and we're going to talk about this process next. But it was just too much strain for the punch, so this is now officially garbage. So then I went out to Michael's and I bought the big fancy corner rounding punch device. It's called a crop-a-dial corner chomper. Very sophisticated name. And then what you do is you pop out the ends right here, and that's where the paper's going to rest. You're going to put the paper in, and you're going to chomp down on it. You would think it would be that easy, wouldn't you, with something like this? But it's not. One of the things I noticed with this is if you're not careful, if you just throw the cards in like you would think you would do, and you just start chomping down, first of all, my cards aren't 100% straight, so things might be a little off, which, okay, because I'm cutting with a pair of scissors and doing the best I can with it. What I have to do is I have to kind of make sure that it's only going to get the corner, because what I found is if I just kind of come down, it cuts in. It cuts too much out. It's going to cut just the corner the way I want, so I got to pull it out a little bit. And you can kind of see a little bit of that roundness right there, so it's not perfect, but it's DIY project. So if it's not perfect, that's okay. I just kind of take my time. I'm just trying to make sure it's getting the corners as round without messing them up too badly. And that's what I end up with. That's pretty much it. So now I got to go through and corner chomp all of these cards. That way they have that professional finished look for my DIY project. And I'm sure you don't want to see me doing that throughout the whole video. But those are my cards, and then I'm just using these sleeves I picked up. I believe these are just European card playing sleeve sizes. I don't recall off the top of my head. Got them at my local game store. Now these cards are still a little bit flimsy, And if you don't like flimsy and you want something a little bit more sturdy and a little bit more rugged, you can amp it up a little bit. So I'm going to zoom back out. So my dungeon cards are like cards. They're a hard cardboard. And basically what I did to make these, I glued a piece of that cardstock to the back of them. And I just used an Elmer's spray adhesion, and I sprayed it down, and I put it in my book press, and I let it sit. And now I'll cut them all out, and then I'll use Elmer's glue, and I'll glue them back together again, and then trim off any excess or anything that I mess up with. Like this side here, you can see I left a little excess. They're not all going to be perfect, but I'm, again, having some fun, making my own things. And the reason I wanted these cards to be a lot sturdier is these are going to be used almost all the time. Like this is what you're going to use to generate your dungeon. They're going to take the most abuse. So I wanted them to be a little bit more sturdier, just for the fact that they're going to be getting handled all the time. That's why I decided to do that. If you think that might be too thick for you, you could only, glue half of the cards. So just cut the piece of paper in half and only glue it on half of them, and then cut them all out and glue them together. That would be up to you. And the way I do this is I take the print and the cardstock and I tape it together. That way it's connected. And then I take this outside and I hold it up and I spray the adhesion all over it, because I'm just using an Elmer's spray adhesion for this project. No reason to do all the Elmer's glue and all that stuff. Just spray it because they're going to go into a card sleeve. And then I'll lay it down, put it in my book press. And then when I'm done, it's all nice and firm like this. And then we go back to cutting. And we just cut it all out. And then we'll glue them all together and we'll have all of our dungeon cards. So that's how I'm making my more sturdy cards. And then this is all my event cards and my treasure cards and everything like that. This is just going to be a little bit of a lengthy project for doing all the cards. It's just going to take a little bit of time, mainly just taking my time cutting and then taking my time cutting the corners off of all the cards and just making a nice presentable end product. The next video, I'm going to actually go back to making boards. Little Monk and I have been talking, and he commissioned me. We're trading me making some boards for some of the books that he has released. And speaking of his books, sometime like this, by this weekend or next week, he is going to finalize anybody that is interested in purchasing any of his books. And I'll put a link in the description below to the Facebook group. And you can go over there and let him know if you're interested in ordering any of the books. I believe he has 11 books total with all of his adventures and the settlement guide, the ultimate treasure guide, the ultimate adventure guide. He's got a lot of content. If you're really going to get serious about Warhammer Quest 1995, you may want to take a look at getting some of those books for your collection. We're going to be binding the RPG book next for the channel, but I want to get through the boards first. I'll be making a bunch of boards, and this time I will print them to the right size. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.